It's important to tell Dr. Mary Walker's story because she's significant in history, and yet much of her history has been hidden.
Her nonconformity may be part of what pushes her out of the main narrative of history.
She battles it out. She knows what she wants to do, and just because she was a woman, that was not going to stop her from doing that.
Everybody starts from someplace, and it could be as modest as Oswego, New York.
Radical reformer, Civil War surgeon, defiant suffragist, and the only woman ever awarded the Medal of Honor, Dr. Mary Edwards Walker. Mary Edwards Walker was born on November 26, 1832, on her family's 33-acre farm in the rolling hills outside of Oswego, New York. In the 1830s, Oswego was a boom town. Its harbor on Lake Ontario bustled with commerce, while the newly completed Oswego Canal linked the city to the great artery of the Erie Canal, a conduit for both goods and ideas.
Dr. Mary Walker grew up in a time when New York State was just a hotbed of movements like abolitionism, temperance, and suffrage. And her parents were very progressive, and they were ardent abolitionists.
Her father was a great progressive factor in her life. In fact, he started the first school in the area, and it was open to girls as well as boys.
He also believed in women's dress reform. He did not think that corsets and long skirts were healthy in the environment of the farm. He encouraged his daughters to wear pants under a short skirt.
From childhood, really, her parents had a kind of unique take on what girls could wear. She was able to adapt the bloomer style of dress pretty early.
Her dress was radical. At the period where she grew up, skirts had to be to the ground. That was standard.
The progressive spirit of Mary's childhood laid the foundation for her lifelong pursuit of social justice. The fifth of 6 children, 4 sisters and a younger brother, Mary displayed an insatiable curiosity from an early age. With her parents' encouragement, she developed a strong interest in medicine, and after working briefly as a teacher, she enrolled at Syracuse Medical College in 1853, graduating 2 years later as the only woman in her class.
The private practice before the war was a struggle because even then, many women did not want to go to a female doctor.
And a few years later, the Civil War broke out.
Dr. Walker was just 29 years old when war erupted in April of 1861. Determined to serve, Mary closed her medical practice in Rome, New York, and set out on the 400-mile journey to Washington, D.C., arriving that October. Mary wrote home with pride.
I suppose you all expected me to go to war, and I thought it would be too cruel to disappoint you.
When she went to Washington in 1861, obviously there was a lot of resistance to a woman doctor. They would not allow her in the army. They would not allow her to practice surgery.
She battles it out. She knows what she wants to do, and just because she was a woman, that was not going to stop her from doing that.
Undeterred, Dr. Walker volunteered without pay at Indiana Hospital, a large temporary medical ward housed in the unfinished U.S. Patent Office. There, she confronted overcrowded rooms and a desperate shortage of trained physicians. The work was grueling, but Mary pressed on tirelessly, tending to the wounded around the clock.
As soon as the soldiers learned of my being a physician, they were very much pleased, and whenever they felt worse in the night so that they wished to have a surgeon called, I was the one that was sent for.
Beyond her hospital duties, Walker threw herself into relief work across the city. She raised supplies, secured food and clothing, and organized housing for unaccompanied women who had come to Washington looking for wounded loved ones but had nowhere to stay. She helped wherever she could. Dr. Walker was far from the only woman to go to war. Thousands of women on both sides poured into the conflict as nurses, Aid Society volunteers, and spies. Some even disguised themselves as men and enlisted as soldiers.
There were quite a few women who thought that the Civil War was a really important cultural stepstone and wanted to be part of that, and Mary Walker does that in her own unique way.
During this time, Walker adopted a uniform of her own design, practical, distinct, and symbolic of her authority as a medical professional.
The uniform that she adapts during her military service really echoes that of the other assistant surgeons, which was the rank she was sort of equivalent to. She wears the same colors. The short top with a skirt below it sort of mimicked the frock coats that male officers were wearing, and she kept the medical stripes, and there's photographs of her holding her assistant surgeon's hat. The sash that she wears, the green sash that accompanies that, is also a marker of assistant surgeon's uniform.
Her service extended beyond Washington. In late 1862, after the Battle of Fredericksburg, Walker traveled to Virginia and volunteered at the Lacey House Field Hospital, where Union doctors treated hundreds of wounded soldiers. Clara Barton, future founder of the American Red Cross, also worked in those same wards, bringing food, supplies, and comfort to the suffering. Conditions at Lacey House were horrific. Blood-soaked floors, shattered bodies, and makeshift operating tables filled the stately home. Amid the chaos, Walker's endurance and skill stood out. Walker's experience at Fredericksburg hardened her resolve to obtain an official commission. But time and again, the Army refused her on the grounds of her gender.
It took her years to get the credibility and the connections with Union generals who saw her value, saw how hard she worked.
She finally got the attention of Generals Thomas and Sherman.
In 1864, General George H. Thomas, commander of the Army of the Cumberland, appointed Walker as a civilian contract assistant surgeon with the 52nd Ohio Volunteer Infantry. While serving with the 52nd, Walker often crossed enemy lines, frequently alone, to treat Southern civilians. It was perilous work for anyone, but especially for a young, unaccompanied woman in a war zone.
But she just knew no bounds. No, there'd be no boundaries. To those who needed help, she reached out to help them. And it's because of her going into the Confederate lines that she was captured.
On April 10, 1864, while behind enemy lines, Walker was captured by Confederate soldiers and arrested on suspicion of being a spy. She was taken to the notorious Castle Thunder prison in Richmond, Virginia.
It was a dank hole of a warehouse. She had vermin and rats running over her at night, and the food was terrible.
She got some of an eye infection in there.
It damaged her eyes, and she was never able to do surgery after that.
After 4 harrowing months at Castle Thunder, Dr. Walker was exchanged for a Confederate surgeon and returned to duty. After the war, General Sherman and Thomas urged that Walker be formally recognized for her tireless service and extraordinary sacrifices.
Generals Thomas and Sherman recommended to President Johnson that she receive the Medal of Honor. And of course, the Medal of Honor just began in the Civil War.
On November 11, 1865, President Andrew Johnson awarded Dr. Walker the Medal of Honor. To this day, she remains the only woman ever to have received this distinction. The medal became Walker's most prized possession, and she wore it every day for the rest of her life.
After the Civil War, Dr. Mary Walker was only 33 years old, and she was just full of energy and passion and on a mission.
After the war, Walker traveled Europe and America, giving lectures on a wide range of topics, including her time in the Army, women's dress reform, and women's suffrage. Gradually, her attire grew even more unconventional: tailored jackets, trousers, and top hats, provoking ridicule from both men and women alike.
But she has a famous phrase when she was accused of impersonating a man. She was even arrested for it one time. She said, "I don't wear men's clothes, I wear my clothes."
During this period, Dr. Walker also emerged as a vocal advocate for women's suffrage.
Dr. Mary's involvement with the women's suffrage was sort of tumultuous.
She disagreed with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony on the need for an amendment. She said, "The Constitution already says all men, and that means all men and women. So we have the right to vote, She was uncompromising and unapologetic for how strongly she felt about this.
In 1873, Walker carried her crowning constitutional argument directly to Congress, urging lawmakers to pass legislation that would safeguard what she believed was a right women already possessed. However, Walker's radical ideas eventually put her at odds with other suffrage leaders.
They were uncomfortable with how unconventional she was.
And I think that her nonconformity to that may be part of what pushes her out of the main narrative of history. So when we talk about suffrage, it's a lot easier to talk about the suffragists whose ideas came to fruition. And I think that Mary Walker's ideas didn't always come to fruition because she's always sort of battling upstream.
Walker's uncompromising stance on these issues alienated fellow activists and led to her gradual isolation from the mainstream suffrage movement. Through it all, Walker never wavered in her convictions. In 1917, just 2 years before her death, the nation she had once served with such devotion stripped her of her most cherished honor.
In 1917, they were reevaluating the criteria for giving a Medal of Honor. They took the Medal of Honor away from about 900 veterans, including Dr. Mary Walker.
She was to return the medal, which she never did.
Dr. Walker passed away in 1919 and was laid to rest in her family's plot in Rural Cemetery in the town of Oswego.
Through the efforts of Helen Hay Wilson, a grandniece, the honor of the medal was restored to her under President Carter's administration. The medal rests today at the Richardson Bates House, the Oswego County Historical Society. It's on permanent display now.
The medal is the centerpiece of our current exhibit because we finally had a campaign to raise the money to display it safely and securely.
In partnership with community organizations, the museum remains committed to preserving Dr. Walker's story for future generations, ensuring that her legacy endures.
It's important to tell Dr. Mary Walker's story because she's significant in history, and yet much of her history has been hidden, and many people, even in Oswego, don't know about it. She was kind of suppressed by people who thought she was just a little too radical to even talk about.
Oh, I've seen a shift in the appreciation of Dr. Mary, realizing that she was right in so many ways. People are respecting the courage and commitment and persistence that she had back then to just battle it out.
Once nearly forgotten, Dr. Walker's story has reemerged as one of resilience and hope for the future. From a modest farm in the rolling hills of upstate New York to the battlefields of the Civil War and beyond, Dr. Mary Walker's unyielding spirit stands as a testament to courage without compromise and an inspiration for generations yet to come.
Everybody starts from someplace, and it could be as modest as Oswego, New York. The fact that she is ours and we can use her to inspire future generations in what she believed in, equal rights for everybody, is why we keep her story alive.